Hi again. Here we are to continue talking about UI elements and making UI, interface controls with Swift and Xcode. And in our last video, we set up some touch events, right? So our touch events are measuring the distance, like how far we moved our finger, like when you make contact with the screen, like how far you drag from that original point where you made contact, right? So let's apply that now to our project here. And what we want to do is we want to increase and decrease this value right here, because by doing that we'll redraw the line, right? And when the value is 0, the line's all the way at the beginning. And when the value is 1, the line goes the full length of the path, right, of the arc. So how are we going to do that? Let's go to touches began, and I've got the X location. So this is where you touch the screen. But what I want to do here is I want to add another private var, and I'm going to call this, let's call this, last value or something, right? Okay, and this will be a float. And I'll just set it to 0 initially, right? So this value is going to remember the value of value when touches began. Okay, so we'll say last value equals value, right? And then what we'll do is we'll take the delta x and we'll apply that to last value. Now, if you recall in the last video, I kind of cryptically said, like, we have delta x and the number is like way too large. We need to scale it down. Okay, so let's do that right now. So what I'll do is I'll just, take the delta x here. I'm going to put these in parentheses to make sure that the computer does this math first. So I want it to subtract this value from the other value first. And then what we'll do is we'll multiply times some factor, like how about 1,000? Let's make it 1/100th. Okay, so if we move 100 pixels, that'll be like 1. Okay, so we got that. And then what we're going to do, and we can print out the delta x again. Maybe that'll help us debug, right? Because we can just print the number out and see kind of what it is, right, as we move our finger on the screen. And then what we'll do is we'll take the last value, right? And let's actually make a new one. Let's make a new variable. Let's call it new value, right? Let's say new value is going to be the last value plus the delta. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll say value equals the new value. Okay, so let's give that a try. Let's see how that works, right? And why do I have, you know what I forgot? Last value is a float and delta x is a CG float. And how did I know that? Well, pretty much anytime you have something that deals with something on the screen, like the size of an element, the width of an element, the position, the location of it, like a CG point always is, x and y is a CG float. And, just to double check, if we use the option key, we can click on a value here and I can see it says CG float. This is a float, so I know it's a little weird. Actually, it doesn't say float there, but we know that this guy's a float because we set it up here. Our problem is like the computer's saying like, hey, these are two different kinds of numbers. You're not allowed to add them together. So what we're going to do is we're going to take delta x and we're just going to convert it to a float. So we'll say float. Actually, that has to be a lowercase l. So we'll say delta x is a float. And then that'll make the answer here. If we do math with two floats, we'll get a float as an answer, and then we can assign the float to the float value there. Okay, let's give it a try, right? So here's our value here. And then we'll run this in the simulator and see what happens. So now when I drag this way, you can see the line goes up. And when I drag this way, the line goes down. And it should do it over the course of about 100 points, which roughly translates to pixels, right? So that's not too bad. I mean, it feels pretty good here with the mouse. really to understand this, we need to use the simulator, I mean, not the simulator, but your phone, and actually test on your phone with a real, finger on a real screen, and then we'll get a real feel for this, okay? So this has some other issues, like you can see the number goes, like it keeps going down, right? And if I drag it this way, like I can finally get it back into a usable range, but then if I go past the end, it keeps going, right? So that shouldn't happen. Like I shouldn't be able to get values greater than 1. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to clamp our value out. So we'll have to do it here. We'll say like clamp. So this means like limit the minimum and maximum value, right? Clamp means, limit the min and max value. So essentially, like we want to clamp between 0 and 1, okay? So I'll leave that for you as a challenge. You can try and put that code right here, right? So we want to clamp new value. So it can't be less than 1 and can't be less than 0 and can't be greater than 1. You can try that, and then I'll do the answer in the next video.